Hi, everybody. Great to see some people coming on board. It's Richard here. Hopefully you can start to hear me. If you can, say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're coming in from today. Hopefully you're all on mute. Stuart, I can see you're not on mute. Let me go and mute you. Just we'll try and keep that going well. Hi there, Emily. Great to see you. All for coming. Glad you can all hear me. I guess everyone's coming from pretty different areas. I'm just based outside Paris. We're in pretty much full lockdown. We have to take a little form. Looks like this everywhere we go, if we want to go out shopping or anything else. So these are very extraordinary times, but we'll get into that in a minute. So first of all, thanks for joining. We're going to probably take about an hour, I would say. It might go on a little bit more. I will give you the recording of this so that if you need to jump off before the end, no problem, you will get the recording as well as some of the other materials to go along with this. What I'm going to do as well is share with you in the chat. Hopefully you found the chat functionality. I'm going to share to everybody a link which will give you a bit of a worksheet that's going to cover some of the areas we talk about today. If you can't access it, if you're on a train, on your mobile, it's not a problem. I can walk through the exercises as we do them, but I'm going to go ahead and share that in the chat. It's a Google Doc, so when you get it, you can make a copy of it, or you can download it in a Word format or PDF format, or just look at it. I want to make this interactive as much as possible. Okay, well, I want to respect your time. You've arrived on time. Some people will probably come a little bit later, but let's get going, shall we, and talk about leading remote teams in challenging times. Well, let's start. These are extraordinary times. I don't need to explain why. You're all highly aware, and that's why you're here. And you know, when things are so uncertain, when there's fear, when there's a lack of clarity, it's easy to go into fight or flight mode. It's easy to try to hunker down, and you start to get tunnel vision. Fear and stress narrow our vision, and we immediately want a quick fix. What's the thing that's going to get us out of this problem we're in, it feels like. And so the temptation right now is to dive straight into what is the 17-step recovery plan or leadership plan, as you think about, perhaps your team has never been remote before, 100%. Perhaps you do some teleworking, but perhaps this is a new situation, or perhaps you've actually got a team who's already been remote, but suddenly you have to work with customers, suppliers, other teams who are now totally remote, or just that the whole business scenario has changed. So a lot of reasons to feel that stress, that fear, that concern for the future. And so I want us to take a deep breath at this start right now. I encourage you literally to take a breath, because the first counterintuitive truth for today is to slow down, to speed up. I want you to be present. There's probably a million things you can be doing, emails you can be writing. But let's slow it down, because it's in that space that we create that we can release our creativity and our insight. Now, thank you for those of you that filled in the form to help me orientate before this webinar. There are many different expectations. Some people are saying, help me focus on the right things to do right now. Other people, how the hell do I motivate my team in this situation? Other people, I need some tips and tricks for teleworking efficiently. And I'll get onto some of those things. I've worked remotely and led remote teams for, I guess, 15 years or so by now. And I'll share some of those things later on. But I want you to share a distinction with you right now, which is listen for insight, don't listen for agreement. You see, most people, they listen for agreement. Do I think what this guy is saying is right or not? I'm not actually attached to being right. What I want to do is push your thinking today, get you to think outside the box, have new ways of looking at the world. That's what I do as an executive coach and consultant. And I want to just suggest to you that the reason that you think you're on this call might not be the reason you actually need to be on this call. So there might be something else that you have not come looking for that is actually going to be the insight that you need for today. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little slide deck. There we go. And hopefully you can see that. Do shout if you can't. Let me just get my screen set up nicely here. So I can see the chat. Hi, everybody. Just realized there were some people who are in the waiting room and who've just arrived. So apologies for those of you who were kept in the cold for a few minutes. I was just introducing the session, and perhaps the main insight was slow down to speed up. So I have this little, get to my side. Here's my favorite little snail. Again, in this time when we have narrow vision, tunnel vision, where we want to go fast and we're feeling we need to make things happen, just take a breath and let's focus in and find out what's the insight that you're here for today. So, with the snail in mind, I want to share a little story with you. This lady here is Georgina. She's my sister. She's severely mentally handicapped, has been from birth. And when she was about 20 years old, she had an operation that went slightly wrong, and she became paralyzed from here down, from her kind of chest down. She was in rehabilitation for over 6 months. It was a terrible time for the whole family. And then the following year, she was back at home. She got a bit of movement back, not all of it. And we held a party for her, a birthday party. And it was a special party. It was called the Chips Are Down Party. The Chips Are Down Party was a party where we invited those people who'd really been there for her and for our family in that terrible year. Because it wasn't the people we thought, it wasn't necessarily all the people in our family and all our closest friends who were actually there for us in that period. It was sometimes other people. People we thought were a bit further apart, a bit more distant, not quite so close. Actually, they turned out to be the rocks in that time. The Chips Are Down Party. And I want to suggest that right now, for you, for your teams, for your families, in your business, the chips are down, right? It's that poker analogy. The stakes are high. This is the moment that counts. And it's going to reveal the kind of leader that I am and that you are. So, as I said, before we share the tips and tricks and ideas about practically what do I do with this remote team of mine, let's get to a deeper level. And that deeper level is, who do you want to be at this time? What's the kind of leader that you want to be? Because the chips are down. This is where you're going to be remembered. How do you react in this time? How do your teammates, your team, the people you're leading, how do they see you? Because at the end of the day, it's not that list of 17 different action steps that you're going to do to turn the business around or to make your team flourish. It's not what you do, it's who you are. One of my mentors, Kerry Oberbrunner, had that phrase. I love it. It's, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And that's a huge challenge. So who do you want to be in this time? I want to suggest that you might want to be the leader that wows your team. What could you do in the next week to wow your team? Send them chocolates, give them a day off, help them go and look after their family. Perhaps you can't do that, but perhaps it is something you can do. Perhaps just ring them up without any work-related task to find out how they are, how their family is, what's stressing them out. I don't know, what is it? How could you wow your team? I also want to suggest you could be the leader that believes in your team. That's the energy to bring, perhaps. Belief. Are you going to bring your team up, raise them up? So this is getting onto the question of tone, right? What's the tone that you want to bring? Do you want to be the leader who's in panic, who's hunkering down, who's driving people harder than ever because of the sense that the ship is sinking? Or can you actually be a leader who believes in the team, wows their team, and actually looks at this as an opportunity, yeah, sure, to take the right course correction measures, obviously, good housekeeping, but also to innovate, because it's the innovators right now who will be the leaders in whatever it is, 3, 6, 9 months, as this starts to become part of the past. So in the worksheet that I sent, and perhaps I'll paste it back into the chat, if I can find the chat. Where's the chat gone? Apologies. Here's the chat. So I'm going to just paste in the worksheet once again into the chat for those of you who hadn't got it. So you'll see on the worksheet, the first little area on the worksheet is called PLB. PLB is your personal leadership playbook. Very simple. It's just these two things, tone and strategic anchors. So tone is the energy that you want to bring. What's the tone that you want to define your leadership in this time? I'd encourage you to choose now 2 or 3 words that you want to use to define your leadership with your team. So it could be responsible, it could be enthusiastic, positive, strategic. What's the tone? And then what's the anchors? So the strategic anchors, they're really like values or principles that you want to guide yourself in this time. So I'll give you some of mine. So for me, my energy and tone that I want to bring, it's professional, it's optimistic, enthusiastic, compassionate. The values for me, one of my key values is relationship before opportunities. I just in the last hour had a client who cancelled a contract. Now I could have got into a legal dispute. I'd have been allowed to do that, but no, because it's relationship first in my world. In fact, I even offered, I'll give him a free coaching session in a couple of weeks to help reorientate him because his business is suffering. That's one of my strategic anchors, relationships before opportunities. Another strategic anchor is serve my ass off. Just means in this time, it's the time to pull away from other people by actually serving. This is one way I'm doing it, offering free content, trying to serve as best I can without any hope or expectation of anything from you guys. Another strategic anchor for me is to build like crazy, create new products, innovate, deliver new content. So what is it for you in your situation? Your personal leadership playbook. 2 or 3 words for your tone and 2 or 3 words for the key principles that you want to guide you through this time. And it'll be different for all of you. But go ahead for I'll just give you a few seconds now and go ahead and note that down. Just have a think. What's my tone and what are my guiding principles? So let's move on. Let's talk about a tool that I use with some of my clients called the 5 spheres of influence. You see, we lead in all these spheres. Ourself, if we don't lead ourself, then we've already got a problem. We lead in our family environment, we lead our team, we have influence within our broader organization, and then beyond that to the world. That could be our community, it could be our clients, our industry, various different things, depending on exactly how your life is organized. And two key things to understand with this diagram. The first is that we can have intention, we can be intentional and we can be focused on things, or we can not be focused and not pay attention and be accidental and be on our tram rails, not paying attention. And the second thing to notice is that the ROI comes from the inner spheres. You know, if you're not leading yourself well, if you're not in a good shape, it's very hard to lead others. If your family's falling apart, it's hard to be the leader that your team needs at work, and so on and so forth. So even though the inner layers are less visible, they're actually essential if you want to be solid as a leader. So let me give you a personal story. You know, last week, frankly, I didn't get much done. I wasn't in a great place to lead. There was so much going on. We'd just gone into lockdown. The kids were at home. I was trying to sort out the family, myself, what was going to happen, what does it mean for the business. It was hard for me to lead out into those wider spheres. I had to refocus, get to a better place, put the disciplines in place for sleep and health and exercise. So I want you to just do a quick pulse. Again, you can use the worksheet. There's a column in the worksheet. Just give each of those spheres of influence a number from 1 to 10. So 10 is, that's great right now, it's really solid. And 1 is, it's terrible. It's out of control, it's not good. It's a real pain point for me. So just go ahead and give those a note. If you haven't got a piece of paper, then just look at the spheres and say, yeah, where am I focused? Where's looking good right now? And which is the real pain point? Give you a few seconds to do that. And let's talk about this question of intentional focus. I have a story, a personal story, quite embarrassing. My wife was pretty downbeat on Sunday. There's a lot going on in our life. We're trying to move house. The whole move process has been totally thrown up into the air by the lockdown here in France. She was pretty downbeat about all that on Sunday. And I missed it. I missed it for several hours, most of the day, until we had a blazing argument. Why was that? It was because I was so much in my head, so much focused on my plans. You know, how are we going to move the house? What were the things we had to organize? I was so focused on my to-do list that I missed what was really going on. So my question for you is, what are you focused on right now, and what are you not focused on? It's hard to know what we're not focused on, right? But just take each of those spheres. Myself, what am I focused on? Well, yeah, I'm focused on eating okay and staying healthy and washing my hands 500 times per day. I'm not focused on exercise. I'm not focused on quiet or intellectual stimulation. Yeah, family. Yeah, I'm really focused on my kids right now. They're at school, homeschooling, and it's complicated. Perhaps I'm not focused on my wife, my partner. my team. I'm really focused on cost control and giving clear direction. Perhaps I'm not focused on finding out how they are. You see the kind of thing I mean? What are you not focused on in each of these spheres? Again, on the worksheet, there's a little space for that. But what's your insight when you look at this? So to summarize, from this diagram, you can really pick two things out. The first thing is, which spheres need priority focus? Second question is, where do I need to focus and where am I not focused? So this was a little bit about our personal leadership. It's essential because you need to be in a good place and managing all these things before we can focus on the team. So for the rest of the webinar, we're going to move on from ourselves to the team. And then we're also going to look at strategic leadership, because there's a great opportunity here to pull away by thinking differently, by rapidly reorientating, and by finding the opportunities in this situation. But before we get there, let's talk about the team. So, how is your team doing? Little cartoon just to explain that sometimes working from home, being 100% remote, is not easy. Perhaps your team are working from home pretty much for the first time. Perhaps they've done a little bit of teleworking and now it's totally new. Perhaps they've already been working from home a fair bit, but never 100%. Yeah, Michael, looks like your house. Yes, I know, we've had these experiences before. I will send you a resource about some ways you can withdraw some of this noise cancellation technology. Is extremely useful when you're working from home for exactly this reason from this picture. So people working from home, perhaps they've done some teleworking, but never to this degree. And certainly with the rest of the organization, also totally remote and all their clients working remotely. Second thing is, even if they've been working from home remotely for ages, perhaps they haven't had all their family in the house at the same time. I spoke to a friend and contact of mine yesterday. He said that the hardest thing right now was the constant context switching, right? So again, you or perhaps your people on your team, they're juggling this. They're juggling the expectations of their spouse who's suddenly with them all the day in the workspace, the expectations of their kids needing help with homework or whatever it is, right? There's all these stresses that you can't see as the leader. Have you asked them about it? And of course, they, like you, are concerned about the economy, about their family, about the shopping, about, perhaps they're moving house, perhaps they've got, they're meant to be getting married or something, right? And that's all been thrown into disarray. So all this is going on. So we're going to have a look and understand, well, what actually is happening in the team dynamics. So I'm going to pass to a slight bit of theory, but hopefully that will give you a framework to understand and to think through what's happening in your team in this key point. I'll then get on to some kind of practical tips. But I always find that a bit of theory actually makes the practical stuff come to life. So I used to use very linear models, and there's plenty of linear models around there about how teams work. You need these 5 things in order. But actually, I realized that teams, they're a complicated, interconnected system. These are the 5 key areas. I think if you look at the literature, you really see these 5 things coming up time and time again, right? High-performing teams, they have clarity and motivation. They have an inspiring purpose. They have a clear and compelling vision of the future and how to get there. They have strong internal operations, right? They have a great engine. They have processes and habits that allow them to efficiently execute. They have external interfaces that are strong with the rest of their world. other stakeholders, customers, suppliers, internally in the company, but also externally into the broader ecosystem. Right? So high-performing teams manage those interfaces really well too. And then relationships, right? Relationships characterized by trust, respect, psychological safety, open communications, and learning. In today's world, which changes faster than ever, as we've just seen, the ability for the team to learn fast and expand its impact is critical. And actually got a question for you here. I'm just going to launch the poll. Hopefully you see that on your screen. Which of these 5 team dynamics, these 5 aspects do you believe are most important right now? So hopefully on your screen you can see the poll. Just go ahead and put in what do you think your team needs to understand or needs to work on right now, given this situation. I'm seeing some poll results coming in. This is great. Interesting. Just give you 10 more seconds. Almost everybody's voted. Just 5 or 6 of you not yet voted. 3, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So the let me share that poll with you. So clarity and motivation in number 1 place. Makes sense, right? Lots of uncertainty. People are at home, concerned, all those things, right? What do we do? Where do we go? What are we doing next? Clarity and motivation. Also relationships. This is right. When we're suddenly all remote, we don't have the coffee machine, don't have the water cooler. How do we build relationships in these areas? And then also external interfaces. Right, because customers are different, right? Our stakeholders need to be managed. So there's relationships within the team, but there's clearly relationships with everybody else that we mustn't forget in this time. Now, what's interesting, of course, is, well, first of all, 2 things. Let me finalize the model so you get to see this. So what's interesting is actually the magic, or the magic happens in the intersection of all of these different areas, right? So when clarity and motivation suffer, internal operations actually start to suffer as well, right? Because when they're working well together, you get a real consistent share of shared priorities, and you get a clear vision, responsibilities are clearly allocated, people are working efficiently together. When clarity and motivation goes down, then you potentially start to get duplicate work, people pulling in different directions, the machine not quite working. Equally, let's take the relationship between external interfaces and learning. You have, when those work together, when you're learning and your external interfaces are good, then you are creating product innovation, service innovation. When those interface isn't working so well, you start to become a bit stagnant, less relevant in the market. Your product market fit starts to move away. So I won't go through all of these areas. You can kind of see some of these different dynamics. But the point is that if one thing starts to shift, that actually it impacts everything else. So if your clarity and motivation impacts, it's going to impact how your team relate externally, how they work internally, quality of relationships, the way you learn. So let's actually talk about, well, what's happening right now. A load of things, right? Clarity and motivation, as we talked about, right? There's uncertainty, there's fear, and there's a whole shifted situation. It's a big one. Internal operations, well, people need to adapt, right? We need to adapt. How are we going to actually run our team totally remotely in a world where all our clients are remotely? where the market's changed. What's going to change? What do we do differently? How do we adapt our processes? That's going to come along. It's not the first priority probably, but it's going to be impacted. Relationships. One of the key things that I've seen is transactional relationships. What happens is that when people start to work remotely, you don't get the chit chat that actually forms a team together. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. External interfaces, they can be easy to forget, right? They've also changed. They're also navigating a whole new world. How are you going to interface? What are you going to do differently with those external interfaces, your other stakeholders? There's a great chance for leadership. And then learning. How do you need to adapt in this new world, right? What do you need to learn about right now? So on your worksheet, by the way, there is a space here just to jot some notes about what's coming up for you as we talk about these areas. There might just be some ideas that are coming to you about your team. Oh yeah, what internal stakeholders, we've not talked to them at all in the last week because we've been so busy on sorting out our team's plan. Yeah, what's our learning plan? What do we need to start finding out about for us to adapt? Okay, so just start to make some notes. I'm going to talk about, luckily, given the poll, clarity and motivation and relationships as key focuses for the rest of this section. So for clarity and momentum, I want to share a tool, a very simple tool called Total Strategic Alignment. And I think it's be a great tool to run through to think about how you can communicate to your team. So the first thing is to be transparent. You know, one of my clients, he's a CEO of a large company, and he's been praised recently because he's so transparent. He admits when he doesn't know things. So easy we think we need to tell them all the new plan, what's changed, have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. It's okay. So be clear about what you can be clear about, and admit when you can't be clear about something right now. For example, we've just had to shut the office. When's it going to open again? Right now, I don't know. It's simple as that. So, total strategic alignment. Let's go through this. It's important. So the first is purpose and values. It's easy, again, to go into tunnel vision, but this is a great time to remind the team, why do we do what we do? Who benefits? What is the act of service that our team represents? When we forget to focus on this, it becomes tactical. People's motivation starts to go down. So remind them, tell them the dream again, tell them the vision, and tell them about the values. You know, guys, we're people that we make great stuff happen. Look what we did last year. Yeah, things have changed, but we're going to do it again this year. Remind them of who they are, who you are as a team. Second area is your team's strategic anchors. So what are the key principles that you want to communicate to your team in this challenging period? There are 3 things we need to be doing. Number 1, I'm making this up, right? But number 1, collaborating extensively. You know, the phone is, text messages and emails are not enough. Let's be on the phone to each other, really sharing information. Number 2, rallying around our customers. Let's be speaking to our customers more than ever before. Number 3, communicating with our stakeholders. We need to give them visibility as to where we are, what's working and what's not working. Let's really over communicate, guys. Again, I don't know what it is for you, but simplify it down. What are the 3 things, the 3 anchors that you can remind your team, and not just remind them once, remind them on every call, every week for the next 3 months. KPIs. In this time, it might be that many of your plans have been ripped up and thrown in the bin. The old maps that we had of the way the world worked, the market, our business, might be rendered totally useless by the earthquake that's happening. So how do you measure progress when things are so uncertain? Let's face it, you might have had a revenue target, it's totally blown out the water for the next quarter. Perhaps you haven't even decided what a reasonable revenue target can be. Okay, but what can you measure? What's the way that you can measure momentum and celebrate momentum? Normally it's a lead measure, a lead activity, something that you can do. So it's not an outcome that's not out of your control, it's an activity that's within your control. So your KPIs might be, a simple example in a sales team. How many customers are you speaking to? In a production team, it's the it's the amount of suppliers that you've brought back online. I don't know. You've got to find ways to show the team that they're making progress as a group. Have a really, really simple scorecard that shows people that they're playing a winning game. People love to win. People get engaged when they see that they're actually moving the needle on something. Now, some things might be very slow to react right now because everyone's in hesitation mode. Find the thing that you can measure week by week to give your team that sense of momentum. And team, our roles and responsibilities clear. When everyone's working remotely, it's really important, first of all, that everyone knows what they're doing. And secondly, what's their number one deliverable for this week? Really boil it down. Help people really get clear. This is the number one thing I need from you this week. If every week you were just to speak to everyone on your team and make sure that their number one deliverable was clear, you'd be doing already half the journey, I think. And then in the center of all this is the rallying cry, which is really, let's make the main thing right now. So often we kind of have these general principles for the business, but what is it right now, this week, this month? What is the one message for your team? Probably for the month, don't change it all the time, or for the quarter. Perhaps it's stabilize the business. Perhaps it's speak to every customer. What's the top project as a team that you need to deliver on? What's the top priority? It can be hard and things might change, but bring it down to one rallying cry. And again, keep using it. Keep using it with the team. So clarity and motivation. Take these 4 areas, your purpose, your values, sell the vision once again. Strategic anchors, give them those key operating principles. KPIs, one number that's going to show the team is moving forward and gaining ground. The team, or the one thing everyone's doing. And then the rallying cry. What's the one thing that the whole team needs to be focused on right now? And as we get onto relationships, I want to share this tool, structure and life. Because what we're going to talk about now is putting structure in place to support the life of the team. You see, the life is the plant, and the structure is the trellis upon which the plant grows. It provides the structure where the life can grow. The structure is not important by itself, but it supports the life. And so often, especially when we're physically present, we actually allow structures to kind of go a little bit soft because we're in the office and we're seeing people, we can kind of manage things ad hoc, especially when everybody's remote. Think clearly about the structures you want to put in place to support the life of the team. So I'm going to share a tool here about relationships and about productivity. And probably at the end of that, I'll take a small break. So if you've got questions for any of this, that would be a great time to do this. So start to think about your question, stick it in the chat, and I'll try and look at some of those in about 2 or 3 minutes. So what's the life? Well, let me share a tool called Impact Gears. And this is really a tool that you can use individually or as a team to understand what's the mode of functioning that you are engaged in. Let me go through these gears. First gear, actually, let's start at fifth gear. So fifth gear is you're in the zone, you're delivering, you're focused. You know, the door of the office is closed. You've got your headset on with noise cancellation, and you're just producing your stuff, your report, your product, whatever it is. You're doing your deep thinking. It's focused time. 4 is task mode. Gear 4, you're still productive, you're still going quite fast, but you're doing multitasking. It's kind of like emails and calls and getting things done and knocking things off your to-do list fast, moving through your list of things for the day. It's tasks, it's efficient. It's not so focused because you're doing so many different things. Social is third gear. So in third gear, you just slow down a bit more. And it's like, hey, how's it going? How's the family? How's weather? Did you see the match at the weekend? Well, there's no matches, everyone's locked down, but you get the idea. It's chit chat, seeing how people are, fairly superficial level, but important. Second gear is relating. It's more one-to-one. How's it going? You know, how is your mother? I heard that she was ill. You know, and you know, what's going on with the family? It's more that having a coffee together moment, relating, thinking a bit deeper. And first gear is where you recharge. It's where you unplug. It's where you do whatever you do that restores you and brings you energy. So hopefully you can see how these gears are all important. In fact, one of the little rules I live by is, can I be in every gear every day? Can I have some social time, some one-to-one relating time, task time, and focused delivery work? And when do I recharge? But just think about the impact of remote working on all of this. Well, first gear. Suddenly, you know, do people know when they can recharge when they're unplugged? The boundaries have all gone. Are they working from home or do they live at work? Are they getting pinged by instant messages from the entire team all the time? Perhaps you can help set boundaries and agreements so that people know it's okay to recharge and to be unplugged. Second gear, relating to people. What's your structure that you're going to put in place to create that one-to-one interaction? Classic example is a video call, right? A video one-on-one call. It might be as well that you want to create a scheduled block of time in your week that's kind of open door time. Perhaps you set up a Zoom meeting like this and you say anyone can just join, you know, every Wednesday from 9 to 11. I'm going to be just working away. My door is open though. You can join at this time, chat to me. I would advise against a kind of a permanent open door time, because if you do that, you can never get down to your delivery and your task work because you're forever being interrupted. But carve out specific times and communicate them with your team. This is a great time to walk into my virtual office and have a chat. So you can either schedule one-on-ones or you can create that open door period in the day. Third gear, social. How do you create social time when everyone's working from home? Well, some teams I know they actually have specific calls to kind of chat and do social. It's great. It can sometimes be hard to maintain depending on the team, because often at work we're in a very, very task-focused mode and we can find it hard to join a call that we know is just social. So if that's true for your team, what I recommend instead is to really lead your regular team meeting. So perhaps have a team meeting every week. That probably fits more under the task mode, right? Fourth gear, doing your tasks. But start with a few minutes of third gear, a few minutes of social time. So what you need to be is you need to really lead the meeting and be the host. So when people come on the call, you're already there. You're not doing your emails. You're present. Oh, hi, Michael. How's it going? Great to see you. How's the family? How's the weekend? Valerie, you've just joined. You know, fantastic. What's life like in San Francisco these days? You know, what's the weather like, and so forth. So you keep speaking like this to people. Sorry, Valerie, it was just an example using your name there. Whoever it is, you know, Jeff. You know, how are your kids doing? How did they do in the football? Right? Create that small moment of social activity at the very start of your meeting, as everyone joins. And then, yeah, Valerie, I will share the meeting, Valerie. Yes, absolutely. I'll share the recording afterwards. And then move into task mode. Hope that makes sense, right? So start social, then move into task, but really deliberately lead that session. Otherwise, it's just the usual thing. Everyone sits there on the computer, tapping away on their emails, not really talking until the business starts. And then delivery, fifth gear. Encourage your team to structure and block out dedicated delivery time, where they're not going to get pinged by instant messaging, where it's okay to turn that off, okay to turn emails off, and to actually focus. It's critical for productivity, especially where they're also being bombarded by requests from their family who are in the next room, when they're thinking about where the hell am I going to get the shopping done with all these restrictions or whatever it is. Encourage your team to find time for fifth gear. Again, on your worksheet, you have a little a table that you can go ahead and fit in some notes. What's your plan? What structure do you want to put in place to help the team find a rhythm where together you experience recharge, relating, social, task, and focused delivery? Let's let's move on. So hopefully that gives you good structure to think about how to build relationships, right? It's making sure you have the relate time and the social time. But it also allows you to think about how you create productivity in the midst of all of that. And I want to just focus on communication and conversations very briefly. I strongly advise you at this time, if your team's unused to working remotely, have a conversation about conversations. Have a conversation about conversations. But by that I mean talk to your team about, how do we do this? How do we set up time for our relate mode, for our gear 2, for our social mode, gear 3? But also, what are the risks that we're going to have as we communicate remotely? What are the rules that we want to do? Do we want to exchange everything by text message, IM? Do we pick up the phone to each other? What do we agree? What are our rules as a team? And in the midst of that, I want to share this tool, which is, I call it message received. And it shows that if you need to bring challenge and critique and hard words to people, as often we do in business, we need to help people correct or step up a new level on their work, deliver better quality, deliver faster, whatever it is. If you need to bring challenge, the medium is really important. If you're going to do it over social media, everyone knows, right? Sending any kind of critique or challenge over social media tends to just result in a huge flame war, right? SMS, it's not good, right? These are not instant messaging. These are not good ways of delivering. Even email, we've all had, I'm sure, experiences where emails have been taken the wrong way. You have to be so careful, and it takes so long to word an email to try to make sure that nobody's going to take it too badly. Get on a video call. If you can't be there in person, which is the 95% way of really delivering things, get on a video call. It's probably an 80% solution. Because even better than the phone, video allows you to see the other person. You communicate on body language. You look them in the eye. You can see their reaction as you deliver your message, and you can correct it and adjust it. So in this time, be super, super vigilant about using the right medium to deliver challenge, because the risk otherwise is you'll pull back and you won't challenge enough. And some of you already probably naturally aren't great at bringing challenge to people, and it's important for performance to do so. So you want to bring support, be really supportive, but you also want to bring challenge to be a powerful leader. But powerful challenge has to be delivered at least on the phone, probably on video, and ideally face-to-face. So create a video culture that can be used for celebrating and for challenging. So just going to take a pause for a second. that was what I wanted to cover about the team stuff. There's some technical things about what apps you can use and all that kind of stuff. I'll send you perhaps some material on that after the call, but I'd rather focus here on the leadership activities, which in my view is structuring the environment in which your team will flourish. Imagine your team is a plant, it's this organism. You could build the greenhouse around it to provide the right sun and light, to provide the structure, to provide the rules of the game. Okay, I'm not seeing questions in the chat, so I'm going to keep going. But if any questions, please do jump in. Strategic leadership. Zig when everyone else is zagging. I want to push you a little bit today to think about how to turn this difficult time into an opportunity. How to do the counterintuitive thing. And how to reorientate yourself and your team. Move out of fear mode. Move out of hunkering down, defending, and panicking, and move into innovating, leading, and inspiring. First tool, and this is in the worksheet, I think it's flipped on its side in the worksheet just to make it easier to write in, so you might want to look at this, is the rapid reorientation tool. 6 squares just to fill in your ideas. First of all, take your customers, people that you serve. If you work internally and you don't have customers, you have internal customers, you could do it for your internal customers. I would also do it for your end customers, the people that your organization serves. Because at the end of the day, your role, wherever it is in the organization, is to support your external customers. So your external customers, what's changed in their world? What has changed right now? What do we know has changed for your customers? Perhaps it's, well, all their shops have had to shut down. All their branches are shut down. Everyone's working from home, et cetera, right? What's changed? Perhaps their online business is flourishing. What's not changed? Sometimes it's easy to focus on all the things that have changed and all the new things we have to deal with. But what's not changed? Well, what's not changed is that my customers, they still want to be the number one in their industry. What's changed is they've still got complicated personnel situations they need to manage. What's changed is, I don't know what for you. What's not changed? And then what don't we know? Let's just admit these are things we don't know, whether it's changed or not, or how much it has changed. And then for us, for your team, the same 3 questions. What has actually changed for us? Perhaps revenue's down, perhaps revenue's up. Perhaps actually that's more for the what's not changed. Revenue right now is the same. What's changed? Yeah, we're working from home. 3 of us are ill. What has changed and what's not changed? Again, I'm going to suggest you take 1 minute now. I'm going to go on mute for 1 minute. Grab the worksheet and just type out a few ideas or think of a few ideas on these things. This is where the insight can come when you just step back. What's changed and what's not changed? So go ahead and do this quick reorientation for just 1 minute. Okay, I'll leave you to complete that as an exercise. But what that allows us to do is get to a stage when we can ask ourselves some high value questions. High value questions are ways to think differently about our world. We live in a world formed by our own beliefs about it. As I like to say, your bank account is a number. Whether you think that number represents incredible abundance and fortune, or whether that number represents failure and what a loser you are and how precarious your situation is. That's all in our own head. Somebody can look at a number and go, that's amazing. And the same person can look at that number and go, oh my word, I can't believe I'm on the brink of disaster. It's just a number. We live in a world formed by our own making. And so our beliefs about the world, about the situation we're in, about what you just filled in on those 6 boxes, they will structure your leadership behaviors. And they will structure what you think is possible. If you believe the world is collapsing and all you need to do is hunker down, you will act in one way. If you believe this is a fantastic opportunity to demonstrate leadership and pull away, a whole new world opens up. As a coach, my role is often not to provide better answers. Sometimes I provide answers. I'm happy to share my experience, but to help my clients lean into bigger and better and more powerful questions. So here are some powerful questions you can ask yourself. What if the opposite is true? What if the opposite is true? Whatever it is you've written down. If you said, what's changed, is that what's changed is that no one's going to spend any more money on in my sector. Well, what if the opposite's true? What about if actually there is a segment of clients who are ready to spend more than ever before for the right service? Take one of those beliefs, one of those statements that you've written down, and flip it. What does that open up? Where can we pull away? Where can we pull away from our competitors? Where is the chance to invest, to pull away? When I was at Cisco, John Chambers, their CEO, had a fantastic leadership playbook for times of crisis for the company. One of them was, save to invest. So make sure we control costs where we need to. Make sure that we're stable. Second thing is use our financial security, relatively speaking, all right? We weren't going to disappear the next day, to double down on our clients, to invest and serve them more than ever before, knowing that they'll remember that. Even if the revenue doesn't flow that month or that quarter, when the upturn comes, Cisco would be better placed and gain share in that new market than ever before. And that's what happened in the 2001 crisis and 2008. It happened both times. So where can we pull away? Where can we invest to actually and innovate to create something extraordinary? What's the counterintuitive move? I love this question. What's the thing that sounds crazy right now? About raising prices when everyone else feels they need to be cutting them. What about increasing costs in specific areas? Perhaps it's not freezing hiring. Perhaps it's accelerating hiring. Perhaps there's a whole lot of really well qualified people that have just been told they're not going to be hired as planned. Perhaps it's the time to grab them. I'm not saying these apply to you, but think through these things through. This is where the innovation and the breakthrough will come. What's the counterintuitive move? Here's another one. What can we do that employees, customers will remember forever? Who do you need to call up? Perhaps it's actually your own team. Perhaps you can say something to them, wow them, as I said before, and they'll remember it forever. Oh, I had a boss. Remember the 2020 crisis, coronavirus crisis? You know what he did for me in that moment? He did this. Wow, I always remembered it. Be that person. Same thing for your customers. What can you do to wow them? They can remember it forever. How can we help our customers help their customers? You know, our customers are probably going through difficult situations, uncertainty. How can we, if we can help them help their customers, which might go way beyond what you normally would expect to do? Again, that is going to create a wow effect. How could you help them help their customers better? What competitor could now become a partner? The market's changed. All sorts of things are up for grabs. Perhaps the competitor's weaker. Perhaps they can't proceed with a particular initiative. Perhaps you could partner up. Perhaps there's things you can do. How can you change the game? And more broadly, what's the long-term play? In my playbook, it's relationships before opportunities. It's sowing seeds now that perhaps will come back to me in the long term. Perhaps they won't, but it's a long-term play. If it was after the short term, I'd just be trying to put some quick ads up and some dramatic messaging, whatever. No, I'm there for the long term, for my customers, for my clients. When the budget got froze on my customer 2 hours ago, I said, it's okay. I'll coach you for free for the next couple of months. You've been a great client in the past. I want to continue to support you. That's a long-term play. What's your long-term play? Finally, the refocus tool. It's very simple. And again, it's in your worksheet. What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to start doing? And what do you keep going with? The distinction is to differentiate between your offer and your operations. So when it comes to your offer, what's no longer needed or required or relevant right now? Just stop that. Come back to it later. Start doing the things that are going to address the pain points customers are currently going through. Run a webinar on remote teams, for example, and then continue to focus on things which are still relevant and double down on those. If you've already got products and services which are relevant in this time, double down on those. Why not? Then operations, same thing, but internally. What are the low-value tasks that aren't really needed in this time? Where can we cut energy and effort to reinvest in new skills and new capabilities and learning and responding and innovating? And what are the tasks which we're doing well that we can continue to do and perhaps drive more efficiency out of and more impact from? Yeah, so if, I don't know, social media is working for us right now, well, we focus on that, do more of that. If, if managing your IT network is creating outsized benefits, then continue to optimize that. So stop, start, and continue, externally and internally. Almost done. I know we're just over the hour. I said it would be somewhere between an hour and a half. So any questions, I'd be happy to take those. Stuart, you had a question around managing up. Would you advise similar techniques when leading up as well as leading down and across? Yeah, I think so. I think when you're managing up, again, relationships are going to be different. Your manager might not be as available. They're going to be going under the same stress and uncertainty. Here's a great chance to show leadership. Be the person that over communicates. Be the person that shows an interest in them, asks them about their life outside of work, how they're doing. And yeah, have a look at those. Have a look at those 5 team dynamic areas, right? Demonstrate that you have clarity, and also you know where you're not clear yet, and be clear about that. Go back around internal operations, external interfaces, communicate your thoughts on those things, but find one-on-one time to do that. It can be hard, right? You might find that one danger with one-on-one calls is people they get cancelled all the time. Don't cancel one-on-ones with your team. It's really perhaps we move them around, but when you cancel them, it really sends a bad message. If your boss is cancelling calls because they're stressed out, they've got a load of things on their plate, okay, you might have to adapt with it. But over-communicate on other things. Send texts, send emails, do a little video message on your smartphone, and send them it via WhatsApp, for example. That's quite a different way, but it actually gets you in front of them, and it'll cut through the noise. So we've covered 3 things really today. It's a question coming in from Richard. When we are managing large and multiple teams, should leaders individually focus on rallying the whole teams together or empowering our individual managers to do this? Good question. So I guess this is when you have a multi-layer organization. And should the key leader at the top be the one rallying everybody or empower individual managers? Well, it happens at every level. I think, let's say you've got an organization of 100 people, right? You're not going to have the ability to really create relationship at a deep level with all of those 100 people. You can provide clarity and provide clarity to your whole team and clarity to the managers as well. You can provide motivation, remind people of the corporate mission. You can provide those strategic anchors for the company, just like John Chambers did at the Cisco level. So I think it's both, right? You want to do that, and there's great technologies you can use, webinars, all those things to do that. But I think in terms of the frequency, the rubber's going to hit the road with your individual managers. So transformation before multiplication always, right? You can do it for the company, and you should, or for your whole organization, but then those relationships, your key team is really your leadership team, right, of your managers. Make sure they're healthy, and then they can be healthy, right? You can help them be healthy and lead their teams, because everyone's day-to-day experience is governed by their manager. It doesn't matter how amazing the CEO is or the SVP or whatever it is. Most people live heavily influenced by their team manager. Okay, so 2 quick slides to finish. Never let a good crisis go to waste. It's a great quote. I want to encourage you, we always come out of these crises, and you've got a chance to come out a better leader, a more stronger team, pulling away from others in your market, innovating in a way that you haven't done before, building stronger relationships. You can use this enforced period of remote working as a catalyst for culture change. You can do things now that you could never have done when things were kind of stable. It's an incredible opportunity if we take it right. If you want to talk a bit more about this, I have a limited number of spots. I'm happy to do this the complimentary basis, to get on the phone with any of you, and we'll do a rapid recalibration together. We'll roll up our sleeves. I'll coach you for whatever it might be, an hour, on whatever it is that's going on in your world. Again, I want to serve in this moment. You don't need to buy anything at the end of it. Sometimes people do, but that's not the point. The point is I want to serve you and help you step up to a new level of leadership, new level of strategy and opportunity in this difficult time. So if you're interested, do go ahead and grab a slot here, xquadrant.com/speak, and I'll be happy to jump on a call if we can find a good moment and talk together and find out where your opportunity is right now. Well, that's taken us about an hour and 10. I hope that's been useful. Look out for more of these. I'm going to do some more on different subjects. Any feedback, just drop me an email, reply to any of those emails, and I'll receive it directly in my inbox. I'd love to hear from you, what you enjoyed, what was most helpful, and look forward to serving you on another call. Go out there, be the person that you want to be now. The chips are down. Have a great day.